Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're looking at a truly bizarre news story out of Los Angeles.
Yeah, this one definitely caught my eye.
It involves a freeway incident that kind of spiraled fast into something pretty unexpected.
Right, in a nearby residential neighborhood.
We're working off a news report here that details how a multi-car crash on the 134 freeway just kicked off this whole chaotic chain of events.
Yeah, it's really not your typical traffic accident story.
Not at all.
So the report says it started around 3 p.m. This was April 8th.
Okay.
On the eastbound 134 freeway, just west of Figueroa Street, Eagle Rock area.
And it was a 3-car crash.
That's right. And apparently, immediately after the collision, 3 males got out of one of the cars and just fled on foot.
Okay, fleeing the scene.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets, really interesting. The report states that a brother and sister, witnesses I guess, actually decided to pursue one of these fleeing guys.
Wow. Okay, they chased him off the freeway.
Yeah, into the nearby residential streets there in Eagle Rock.
And this is where the suspect's behavior gets, memorable.
Memorable is one word for it.
Instead of just, laying low, he allegedly strips down to his underwear.
Right. Then jumps into some random resident swimming pool.
Exactly. And then, get this, the report says he proceeded to water their garden.
Watering the garden in his underwear after crashing a car and jumping in a pool.
It's a surreal image, isn't it?
Absolutely. So naturally, this chase, this pursuit of the undressed gardener,
right,
it led the police into that neighborhood, specifically the area of Eagle Vista Drive and Waldo Place.
Okay.
And this is where Jillian Shriner comes into the picture. Initially, the report actually described her as uninvolved.
That's key. So police are there dealing with this bizarre pool-hopping, garden-watering suspect situation. And then Jillian Shriner reportedly emerges from her home.
Armed with a gun.
Armed with a gun, according to the report.
And things escalated very quickly from there. The news report says officers gave, multiple verbal commands.
Standard procedure, drop the weapon.
Exactly. Yeah. But she reportedly refused and allegedly pointed the firearm at the officers.
And that's when they opened fire.
Yeah. Striking her in the shoulder, the report says.
Wow. Now, at almost the same time, there was a helicopter, right? Sky 5.
Yeah, Sky 5 was overhead.
And it actually captured footage of that original suspect, the one in his underwear, being arrested, handcuffed nearby. So 2 very different dramatic scenes unfolding practically side by side.
Crazy. So tying this part up, based on the report, Jillian Shriner was later booked absentee.
Right, while still hospitalized, presumably.
For attempted murder. And police recovered a 9mm handgun from her place.
Okay. And there was someone else with her?
Yeah, a woman identified as her child's babysitter also came out of the house with her hands up. She was detained, questioned.
And then released.
And then released, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the other 2 guys who originally fled the car crash.
Still out there, at large.
Now, here's another layer to this that seems almost like out of left field.
The connection.
Yeah.
Exactly. The report mentions Jillian Shriner is the wife of Scott Shriner.
Scott Shriner, the bassist for Weezer.
The very same. The band. Recorded tons of albums since 2001. They're even playing Coachella soon.
Right. That has a whole different dimension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The sort of celebrity connection to this already incredibly strange sequence.
It really does. It's just unexpected.
Definitely.
Now, we absolutely have to stress here, this deep dive, it's based solely on this one news report we've been discussing.
Yeah, really important. We're not adding opinions or, endorsing any view of what happened.
Nope. Just laying out the reported sequence of events.
And what a sequence. It really makes you think how quickly things can cascade,
Totally. A freeway crash, which happens all the time.
Right, sadly.
Leads to this bizarre chase, a guy watering a garden in his boxers, and then suddenly a police shooting and an attempted murder charge involving a musician's wife.
It just shows how complex things can become, how many threads can suddenly appear from one single incident. Exactly. It highlights that unpredictability and makes you wonder, what else is going on here? What are the underlying factors, the motivations? Things a single news report just can't capture fully.
For sure. The sheer unexpectedness at each turn is what stands out.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Just consider how easily our first take on an event can be completely overturned.
Yeah. This story, going from just, traffic news to this, it really shows how much hidden complexity there might be under the surface of almost any news item. Makes you question what you really know, doesn't it?